Hey guys, Lorena Magana here with NewFilmmakers Los Angeles. Today, I'm talking to documentary filmmaker Leslie Neale about her new film, Unlikely Friends. Let's take a look at a clip from the film.
This attitude of there's two types of people in this world, us cops and you dirtballs. And if you're not a cop or a family member of a cop, you're a dirtball. And 3 years and 17 days after I had became a Wyoming State Trooper, while I was having lunch, my dispatch called me and told me that there'd been an armed robbery down in Craig, Colorado, and gave me a description of the man and a description of a car south of Rocks.
Leslie, why don't you give our viewers a brief synopsis of your film?
Unlikely Friends is narrated by the actor-activist Mike Farrell, and it's about victims of very brutal, horrific crimes who not only forgive their perpetrators, but actually become good friends with them.
How did you come up with the concept behind this film?
This is my seventh film, my fourth film on criminal justice reform, and in doing my films and the work that I'm involved in with criminal justice reform, I kept hearing stories of victims who were really taking it upon themselves, with no support of the criminal justice system really, to find an alternative way of healing. And I kept hearing these stories of victims and offenders coming together on their own volition and stumbling upon forgiveness. And then that was just a natural progression from forgiveness, finding human connection, that we're all interrelated, that they became friends.
How did you get involved in making documentaries about the justice system?
It was a long time ago. I was 8 months pregnant at the time and was invited to go into a program in Louisiana, a prison program, and just be a participant. And I really didn't want to go. But at the last minute, I decided to go, and I'm really glad I did because it totally changed my life. I witnessed an incredibly intense, authentic level of honesty from inmates in a maximum security prison whom I had previously been afraid of, whom I had previously judged, that I'm not like them, they're different, lock them up. And when I experienced this, it was actually a drumming circle with a group of about 50 guys. I realized then that that story needed to be told. I was an actress at the time, and I had stopped work to have my child. And I came back to that story when my son was about 3 years old and decided to make a documentary on what I had seen, the program Project Return that I'd seen. That film was Road to Return, narrated by Tim Robbins. And I didn't, I had gone to film school, but I had become an actress, I'd given it up, and I went to a couple of women filmmaker friends of mine, and they mentored me through it, and that was my first film. And that film went on to go to the United States Congress and get a bill funded for aftercare, which is to help ex-offenders go back into society. So I realized, the power of filmmaking. You can do things, you can get people to listen, you can get their hearts to open. And I decided to dedicate my life to criminal justice reform, because I believe there's a lot of fights to fight in this world. Just choose one. So I figured I only have so many years, that's my fight.
How did you go about the process of choosing the subjects for this documentary?
It takes a really long time. I'm known in that world for making films on criminal justice reform by now, so I've got connections, and I kind of put the word out. Those stories came to me in a variety of ways, either through my connections or actually friends in prison now. I put it out in prisons across the country, and one of the stories came from a friend in prison. It's just a variety of ways. I found far more stories than I could tell. But I'm looking at the overall arc of the question that I'm asking, and I'm looking for stories, does your story fit in, that's not duplicated in another story? Lots of duplicated stories. So, do the variables fit? And I was looking at an interfaith piece, whether I wanted multiple faiths, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist. I wanted a Buddhist story, had a couple of Buddhist stories, but I couldn't get access into prison. So if I couldn't get access into meet with your perpetrator or, to have that piece, I couldn't tell your story. So it just takes a lot of time. I also read a lot before I embark on another film. So that's another way that I kind of enter into the subject.
Is it difficult for you as a filmmaker to distance yourself from the subjects and the subject matter that you're shooting?
Both. I've learned to do both. I think for me to do what I do, what I'm trying to do, I hope I'm halfway successful, and that is I'm hoping to open hearts so that we can kind of get out of our own way and maybe look at alternative situations, because I didn't come up with this. I don't know that I can forgive something like that, but I believe these people and they're on to something, whether it's this film or another film or whatever. And I think as a filmmaker, I have to be able to have my own heart open. So yes, I do cry sometimes doing interviews, actually a lot of times. But at the same time, you have to always have that objective mind and go, okay, I can use that, I can't use that. I've got to, have them, say that in a complete sentence. So, because I know I've got to cut it, I've got to have an in and an out. You're thinking of all that stuff, and you're crying. Do you know what I mean? So there was a moment where I couldn't get cameras into the prison. And I'm in there with Debbie and Gabriel, who I mentioned, in Arizona. And, I could cry right now thinking of the memory of wishing I had had that camera. But I'm in a visit with them, and they get up and they hug each other and they say, I love you. And I'm like, I'm stunned. I felt so blessed in a way that I got to witness that, and I so wanted other people to be able to witness it. But, so that was a moment that I got to have. So I guess the answer to your question is, yeah, no, I don't separate myself, and yes, I do separate myself. So.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it.